The brain is an organ with billions of nerve cells. Those cells process information and send out messages, activating responses to external stimuli. Modern science depicts the mind as the sum total of all the cellular activity within the brain. That makes consciousness an expression of the mind-brain connection. However, emerging evidence suggests that consciousness is more a product of cellular activity occurring throughout the body, not just in the brain. In other words, consciousness is more expansive than just the mind. In fact, energy medicine suggests that consciousness is not even limited to the body. Rather, there is a non-physical, psychic, if you will, dimension to consciousness. Orman McGill referred to it as cosmic consciousness, inferring a connection to the cosmos or universe. This creates an ethereal quality far removed from the limitations of a mere mind-brain connection. But it also explains some quirks of consciousness that may be related to cosmic awareness. Cosmic consciousness may underlie some common phenomena which science has been unable to explain empirically. For instance, consider the inexplicable gut feeling that subsequently turns out to be true. Or you reminisce about someone you haven't seen in a long time, and she happens to phone you soon afterward. At the extreme are near-death experiences, or NDEs, in which an individual pronounced dead miraculously revives and then gives a vivid account of what she experienced during her quote-unquote death. There is so much that remains unknown, and therefore much to explore related to this thing we call life. Are you prepared to accept that consciousness is larger than the sum of brain cell activity, and that human experience is more profound than what current science can justify via the 5 human senses? Are you willing to entertain the notion of a sixth sense, or more, and the new science of consciousness? What is the possible nature of this sixth sense? Hypnosis expands the intuitive portion of your consciousness, but it exceeds the popular notion of extrasensory perception, or ESP, allowing you to revisit past experiences, as in recall, with full emotional symphony, or abreaction. Abreaction refers to sensations and emotions experienced during recall, in trance, that are a full and authentic representation of the original event. It is like reliving your life again in that slice of time. Yes, it can be painful, but it leads to the resolution of past hurts and allows past traumas to be reframed. In other words, with the aid of a skilled hypnotherapist, you can re-script an experience. In other words, applying an adult perspective to an event that occurred when you were a child, ascribing motivation to someone else's fears, as opposed to making assumptions about personal inadequacies, or, in contrast, analyzing how your own habits of mind contributed to a failed relationship. The reframing process does not negate the original experiences, but rather gets you unstuck so that those experiences stop holding you back from your current dreams and aspirations. All this occurs without the use of drugs or invasive equipment. The hypnotherapist simply guides you through the events and then helps you heal your hurts. Imagine traveling back in time to resolve an issue while sitting in a chair. Impossible? Find out.
Imagine consciousness as the capacity to experience and process sensory information from within your environment. It's easy to presume this to be a dichotomous variable, where awake equals conscious and asleep equals unconscious. But the context of a continuum of awareness suggests that you are more or less aware of sensory input at any given time. Responding to an alarm clock suggests that you are receptive to sensory input while asleep, and therefore conscious, though not very. So asleep is not equal to unconscious, unless the sleep is deep enough that you respond to no sensory stimuli at all. That is, you can't be awakened, or you are unconscious. In other words, we receive sensory input and process information whether we are physically awake or not. The continuum of awareness depicts consciousness mainly as a contrast between the conscious and subconscious minds. Taken to extremes, it goes from fully awake to comatose and even dead, the ultimate unconscious state, with wakefulness represented by a measure of brain activity in cycles per second, or CPS. However, that contrast means that at any point along the continuum, the interaction of the conscious and subconscious minds varies. At a higher CPS, the conscious mind predominates, but the subconscious mind still has an influence on information processing and decision-making. At a lower CPS, the subconscious mind predominates. The relevance of that predominance becomes apparent when you understand that the conscious and subconscious minds are responsible for different types of information processing. The conscious mind is oriented toward cognitive processing. It deals mostly with objective facts and data. In contrast, the subconscious mind is oriented toward affective, that is, social or relational processing. It deals with subjective emotions and feelings. Therefore, your state of wakefulness determines to some extent whether you respond to sensory input logically or emotionally. When awake, brain activity registers in the range of 14 to 32 cycles per second, or the beta state. That means the conscious mind is largely in control, with the subconscious mind playing a smaller role. As you relax, the brain slows to 7 to 14 cycles per second, or the alpha state. The subconscious mind takes over, allowing the conscious mind to rest a bit. This is the state at which hypnotic trance engages. You are awake and aware, inasmuch as you continue communicating with the hypnotherapist. But this state opens the subconscious for processing, accessing past events, and receiving new suggestions. Deeper relaxation can slow brain activity to 4 to 7 CPS, or the theta state, for deep trance. Because the subconscious mind is so much more open, and because the conscious mind is inhibited in a way that it can no longer interfere with rescripting, according to some hypnotherapists, deep trance work is often the most effective at resolving long-standing issues. Slowing further than 4 CPS puts the brain into a state of unconsciousness. The conscious mind takes a complete break. Consider it a very deep sleep. However, in circumstances of illness, drug use, or trauma, when the brain is unnaturally slowed toward zero, coma can set in. At this very low level of brain activity, the conscious mind is inactive. But there is evidence that the subconscious mind remains active. Even conventional doctors encourage loved ones to continue talking to patients who have lapsed into a comatose state. The patient cannot respond cognitively, but is likely receptive to feelings and emotions expressed through the continued attempts to communicate with them. And of course, there are numerous stories of people who, upon awaking from a coma, relate clear memories of what they had heard around them. The continuum of awareness represents the capacity for experiencing sensory input, whether you are aware, awake, or even unconscious. The proportional roles of the conscious mind and subconscious mind determine how you respond to that input. The relevance to hypnotherapy is that the subconscious mind is where experiences are reframed, which redirects the conscious mind to new patterns of thought and behavior, a path toward better health and happiness.